For a child, there's no one they trust more than their parents. Home is supposed to be the safest place in the world, a sanctuary from any danger outside. But what happens when the danger isn't outside? What if it comes from within, from the very person meant to be their protector? This is a story about that ultimate betrayal, where a home became a crime scene and a father became a killer. From the outside, it was just another house in another neighborhood. The family seemed perfectly normal. Neighbors who were later interviewed said they never noticed anything out of the ordinary. There were no loud, constant fights that echoed through the walls, no visible signs of struggle or violence that would raise an alarm. But behind that calm facade, a quiet, toxic tension was building. Inside the home, family disputes, a need for control, and simmering, unresolved anger was slowly brewing, twisting into something much darker and more dangerous. It was a perfect illusion, masking a reality that was about to shatter. The peace was just a thin veneer, and beneath it, a tragedy was waiting to unfold. Day by day, the pressure mounted, unseen by the outside world, until it reached a point of no return. The daughter at the center of this story was young, entirely dependent on her parents, and deeply vulnerable. Those who knew the family later recalled her as an obedient and fearful child. She was quiet, someone who rarely spoke back or challenged authority. She did what she was told, likely out of a mix of respect and fear. The father, on the other hand, was described in a completely different light. People who knew him painted a picture of a man who was strict, easily angered, and obsessed with control. He had a short temper and demanded absolute obedience. What might have started as parental discipline, a father's attempt to guide his child, slowly and insidiously crossed a line. The boundaries between guidance and domination blurred. Strictness turned into oppression, and the power dynamic in the home became dangerously skewed. It was no longer about raising a child. It was about controlling one. As time went on, the atmosphere inside the house grew heavier. Reports and witness accounts suggest that arguments, once occasional, had become more and more frequent. The father's patience wore thin, replaced by a constant state of anger. His role as a caring parent eroded, giving way to that of an authoritarian ruler. The love and warmth that should fill a home were choked out by tension and fear. On the day of the incident, this volatile mix of emotions finally reached its breaking point. A situation that might have started as a simple disagreement, something that should have been a moment for correction or teaching, instead became a trigger for unimaginable violence. The fuse that had been burning for so long finally reached the end. A simple moment spiraled out of control, and in that moment, everything changed forever. In an act that defies every parental instinct, every biological impulse to protect one's own, the father turned on his daughter. He attacked her. The violence was brutal, and the injuries she sustained were severe. It was a complete and horrifying breakdown of the most fundamental bond in human society. By the time anyone outside the immediate situation realized what was happening, it was far too late. The damage was done. A child, in her own home, in what should have been the safest place on earth for her, had lost her life. She died, not at the hands of a stranger, but at the hands of the man who was supposed to shield her from all harm. The silence that followed was heavier than any argument that had come before. A life was extinguished, and a sacred trust was irrevocably broken. The authorities were eventually notified. When police and first responders arrived, they walked into a scene that immediately raised red flags. It didn't look like an accident. The story didn't add up. The investigation began swiftly. They conducted interviews with family members, neighbors, and anyone who might have insight into the family's life. Medical reports came back and confirmed the devastating truth. The daughter's death was not from natural causes or an accident. It was a homicide. As detectives pieced together the evidence, the physical proof from the scene, the autopsy results, the testimony from those who knew them, all clues pointed in one undeniable direction. They led directly back to the one person who should have been the last suspect, the one person meant to protect her. The father was taken into custody. As investigators dug deeper, the motive became disturbingly clear. This was not a tragic accident. It wasn't a moment of discipline that went too far by mistake. The evidence suggested this was the catastrophic result of uncontrolled rage, an obsession with power, and a complete and total failure of parental responsibility. It was the culmination of years of anger and control that finally exploded in the most destructive way possible. The court system treated the crime with the gravity it deserved. Her father was held accountable, not for an accident, but for the deliberate act that took his daughter's life. Justice, in this case, meant acknowledging the horrifying reality that a parent had become the ultimate threat to their own child. This case is incredibly difficult to hear. It's unsettling because it shatters our most basic, fundamental human expectation that parents protect their children. It's a core belief that holds families and society together. But this story is a stark and painful reminder that sometimes the greatest dangers aren't lurking in dark alleys or hiding in the shadows outside. Sometimes the real danger hides in plain sight, behind closed doors, in the one place a child should feel absolutely safe. This wasn't just a crime. It was a profound betrayal of trust, a violation of nature itself. Some case files are chilling because they expose the monsters who live among us. But others, like this one, are even more disturbing because they reveal the monsters that can live within us. Thank you for watching. If you found this story important, please consider subscribing for more deep dives into complex cases. Stay safe out there.